rah-rah moment to your fandom. It's giving a rah-rah moment to the clubhouse. Like, we got our guy. We got our ace. We got our Cy Young candidate taking ball number one.
Rest the league on notice and energize your own fan base. Let's be honest. It's a lot more exciting to say that Shane Mack's going to take the first pitch of the season versus Zach Littell.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays, from game analysis to player interviews. We've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulysses Zambrano,
bringing you expert analysis and passionate discussions about our beloved Rays.
Whether you're a diehard fan who vividly remembers Longo's Game 162 just like us,
or you remember the early Devil Ray days of Wade Boggs or Carl Crawford,
we're here to break down every play, every trade, and every milestone. In fact, this will be our 7th season covering the Rays daily.
And it is spring training time, so go ahead, grab your favorite Rays gear, settle in, and subscribe to our Locked On Rays YouTube channel and other podcast platforms. You can also find us on X and Instagram at Locked On Rays.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Do you think Stu has enough time in spring training? FanDuel.com.
Well, considering it seems like he is punting the stadium deal, I guess he has loads of time on his hands and not documentation and paperwork and Excel spreadsheets to boot. I guess the world is his oyster presently, as it is the month. We are in March, believe it or not.
It's here.
So we are days, weeks, not months, days and weeks away from the decision that could ultimately lead to the killing of the St. Petersburg Stadium deal between the city, the county, and the Rays, unfortunately.
Tick tock, tick tock. As we're recording right now, it's 29 days. Yes. So by the time this is live, 28 days. So basically February.
It really sucks. So don't hold your breath on that one right now. We do have some spring training nuggets that we want to get into. Notably, and I know it seems like anytime somebody steps at the plate or steps at the mound, it's overtly positive to get people in the mood and in the groove for the regular season and hype up what could be hopefully a successful Rays 2025 campaign. But I do think it is pretty cool that Joe Boyle is throwing gas and throwing gas often. In a recent exhibition over the weekend, or I guess on Friday, I'm not sure the exact day, but he hit 100 miles per hour, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 14 of his 20 pitches against the Pirates were in triple digits. And I think he got well above 100 miles per hour, like 101.2, 101.3. He also generated 9 swings and misses in 2 innings of work. Now, the report is that no matter what he does, unless there's catastrophic injuries with the starting rotation and bullpen, he will start the year in AAA, which is okay. But it is good to know that hopefully this guy can be in your back pocket later on in the year for 2026. And you just get the Rays coaching staff to work with him, Kyle Snyder work his magic with him, and Joe Boyle could be, the next great trade acquisition that makes a name for himself. I mean, we've seen it with Pepio, we've seen it with Boz, we've seen it with Rasmussen, we've seen it with Zach Littell, although he was acquired off waivers from the Red Sox. But if you look at some of the quotes, Kevin Cash, Kyle Snyder, and others are really bullish on what Joe Boyle hopefully can provide for the Rays down the line, assuming he can continue to throw strikes and not walk a million guys.
Exactly. It's can you find the strike zone and can you find it consistently with Joe Boyle? The stuff is certainly there. Like you said, what is it? 14 out of 20 pitches over 100 miles an hour or at 100 miles an hour. That's pretty crazy stuff to have that kind of arm. Now,
Not to mention he's 6'7", so the
right.
extension and the length and the intimidation factor,
It's
it's
huge.
Tyler Glasnow-esque, if I may say so.
Yeah. I think that's the comp right there. I mean, obviously, with differences inside, but like a big thing for Tyler Glasnow when he came is, consistency. Can you find some sort of constant delivery where it's a lot,
Right.
like everybody says, right? A lot of moving parts, a lot of hinging, a lot of different things happening when you have a bigger stature. And when you're 6'7", it's very difficult to keep
Yes.
a constant delivery. So can you find that? Well, guess what? He's coming to the right organization. The Rays have seen this many, many times before, and they've been successful many, many times before. So I think he is that project for the Rays that if they're able to be successful with him,
Mm-hmm.
then 2026, 2027, I'm not even adding him really to 2025, but 2026 and 2027, the rotation, I mean, you're looking at a rotation with a lot of upside. And I've been trying really hard to, I don't know, I've been having a tough time finding out if Joe Boyle has had Tommy John surgery before, because Google and now with its AI just kind of takes
Right.
Tommy John with Springs. And so
Mhm.
it just gives me Jeffrey Springs Tommy John surgery. So I don't know if Joe Boyle has had Tommy John surgery, but if he hasn't, then that would be the wrinkle. Like
Right.
a guy that like that, it makes you wonder.
So going forward, if you had to put green Skittles on it, do you see Joe Boyle as being I don't even want to go as far as to say a top the rotation guy, but he continues to be molded as a starting pitcher, or some of the issues with command and control continues to rear its ugly head and the Rays just have to say, all right, we love you, we love your talent, we love your skill set, but we can only take it in 1 inning doses. So 8th inning, 9th inning, you're going to be that guy in 2026, 2027, and possibly beyond.
I think if you're not able to find that consistency, then he might be slotted as more of a bullpen guy and
Right.
just like let it eat for an inning. The issue is, though, a guy that has no control over where the pitches are going for 5-6 innings, that can get ugly, right? But
Right.
even if you're not finding the strike zone in 1 inning, you can find yourself in situations where you see a guy 2 walks and a bloop and a boom blast, and you've lost the game in the
Mhm.
5th inning, 6th inning. So regardless of where you're going to be slotting him in the pitching staff, either in the rotation or the bullpen, this needs to improve. This
Right.
needs to improve no matter what. Now, in different degrees. If it improves a lot, great. Then you can have yourself a really good starter. If it improves somewhat, then you can have a guy that is going to give you high blood pressure moments,
Mhm.
but hopefully, like we've talked about recently with the velocity, you can get away with mistakes if you have that extra 2-3 miles an hour on your stuff, if you have that movement on your stuff. And he does seem to have the velocity in his pitches where he might be able to get away with some mistakes. Not all of them,
Right.
but some mistakes.
Yes. We have more to discuss on this, plus some other rumblings as well. But first, we have to tell the audience something very important, and that is FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip off, or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. So right now, New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
I'm really upset that the Google machine is not working with it. I mean, the most I can get is a lower back injury from Joe Boyle, but I don't think it would be a little bit easier, but I don't think he's had Tommy John.
So your hypothesis is that a major league pitcher at some point in his career will be required. It will be a prerequisite to have Tommy John surgery. It eventually happens. A guy throwing that hard, that often, something's got to give with the elbow, shoulder, whatnot, that he's going to be out for the count at some point in his career, unfortunately.
Has to. I mean, it would be very difficult to see a guy that has this type of stuff that Joe Boyle has and then not go to Tommy John. But from what I've been able to search for, it doesn't seem like Joe Boyle has had Tommy John surgery. And that kind of worries me a little bit, not going to lie.
Yeah. All right, that's fair. Do you want to note, so Joe Boyle right now really only has two go-to pitches. It's the four-seamer and the slider. Last year, anyway, he used the four-seamer 59% of the time, the slider 34% of the time, and then dabbled with the curveball in the sweeper. Now the Rays are going to work with him on a split-finger fastball in AAA, so that could dutifully give him three pitches. But then again, we knew that a guy like Tyler Glasnow was able to have success with just two pitches for a period of time before he added the slutter, I guess, if we go back and remember that. But I think the ultimate thing with the Rays, and they've done this and it's well documented, is that yes, they're going to give guys that have struggled from other locales, whether it's Oakland or Pittsburgh or somewhere else, they're going to give them details on what they can work on and how they can improve, but also present it in a simplifying way. And I think really the thing is, hey, you're good. You don't have to nibble.
Yeah.
Simple. You need to make your delivery as clean as possible. Focus on throwing strikes, and your talent will get you out, and the defense will bail you out. And that's all you need to worry about, really.
And if you're a Rays fan since at least 2018, then guess what? You have seen this conversation with Tyler Glasnow. Remember, he only had that fastball and the curveball, and they were like, he needs a third pitch. And then the slutter came about, and boom, he took off. So we could be, doing the comps with Boyle and Glasnow all day long. And if that were to happen, that would be great. Okay, last update, real time. Okay. I literally asked ChatGPT to not confuse him with Jeffrey Springs and has he had Tommy John? Right. And it says it does not appear that Joe Boyle has had Tommy John surgery. The only big injury that he's had is lower back strain.
I could see that with a bigger taller gentleman like himself. And I think the other thing too is the fact that the Rays have a track record with Glasnow and so many others is that they can use that evidence, and Joe Boyle and others can say, okay, they've done it successfully with all these other guys, so I should probably listen to the message that they're imparting on me so I can be a good player and at the end of the day be successful and make millions of dollars. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Exactly. It's like everything in life, right? When you're in a place of business and you get told, hey, that person was struggling, but they got better because of this and that. And then you see that person that struggled be really well. Then you're like, okay, well, I can do it too, So it's like that with everything. But Joe Boyle is not the only thing happening in spring training, Kev.
Yes. And before we move on Joe Boyle, I know this isn't going to be totally a Joe Boyle episode. We do have a note on Shane McClanahan as well, but I just want to give some context here because it was a little bit, I wouldn't say eye-opening, but we kind of knew it was going to happen because Jeffrey Springs was, the highest paid player at the time, and all the injuries that he dealt with, and the Rays they didn't have to, but the thought was that they were going to free up some salary. Well, you trade Jeffrey Springs to get Joe Boyle, and we hope Jeffrey Springs has success. But the Rays, definitely like what Joe Boyle provides, plus the other prospects in the draft pick that they got in that deal. Trading Springs ultimately, in my mind, allowed them to have the wiggle room and the financial ability to up the offense and maintain the defense with, okay, we can use that money we're saving from Jeffrey Springs to get Danny Jansen and Ah-Sung Kim, which hopefully turns into a windfall for the Rays this season and next season. But if we go back even further, I just like to look back in hindsight on some of the deals of like what led Jeffrey Springs to the Rays. If you remember, the Rays got Jeffrey Springs and reliever Chris Mazza, who did not last long with the Rays, if I may note. In order to get those two players, the Rays gave up then touted catching prospect Ronaldo Hernandez, who is now 27 years old and is yet to get past AAA. He's currently in camp with the Yankees. They also threw in infielder Nick Sogard, who played 31 games last season with Boston. So that is a case of the gift that keeps on giving. Because, again, I think we were all gung-ho on what Ronaldo Hernandez would be able to provide. And then we get these guys. Why is Jeffrey Springs has been DFA'd? He hasn't done anything for the Red Sox. Chris Mazza, well, he didn't really do anything either. But you see it's the Rays are playing 3D chess sometimes. And this was, I think, hopefully evidence of it.
Most often than not, the Rays have such a great track record with trades. That's why I think it really bums you out when they miss one, because you're so used to it working out that when it feels like a miss, you're like, come on, why?
Even the Rays, as good of an organization as they are, they cannot bat 1,000 for every trade. You can bat, if you're winning 60-70% of the trades, I think you're doing pretty well.
And what you need to minimize, though, is maybe not the percentages of how much you miss, which, by the way, would be great, but it's the impact of how much you lose, because the Rays are really good at that. But sometimes, when you lose and it feels like a lot, like, man, we could have had that power, or we could have had that, whatever that thing is, then it really sucks. But for this example, what's the thing that always holds the Rays back? It's the catching. So when you're a catching prospect and you threw him away, you're like, what are you doing? But this turned out to be awesome.
Yes, it did indeed. Speaking of arms, we also want to put light on Shane McClanahan, who pitched for the first time recently since August 2023 elbow surgery. That marks 577 days since he played competitive baseball. Of course, it was an exhibition spring training game, but it's still good to see him out there. He threw 2 innings, 35 pitches in those 2 innings. All reports were that he looked comfortable, hit 99 miles per hour, and quote, for him, it felt like riding a bike. So that is a very good sign that Shane McClanahan can hopefully return to the Shane McClanahan of previous iterations and not only be the number one, but be a bona fide ace, maybe be an all-star, maybe get some Cy Young votes, and just ultimately anchor that rotation. It seems that the Rays will try to work him up to 5 full innings in about 80 pitches in the last or one of the last spring starts that he makes before opening the season against the Rockies on March 28th at Steinbrenner Field. So good to see him out there. Good to see him getting action. And he seems to be comfortable and returning to his old self, hopefully.
Yes. And remember when we were talking about, opening day starter, they usually go with the tradition and all that of who under the last year, and they kind of went away with that this year with choosing him. I was thinking about it during the weekend when he came out and the quotes came out and how he looked. I think the Rays, with the decision of giving him the opening day start and going away with the tradition that they've had in the past, I think they wanted to make a statement
Right.
Not only within the fan base of reassuring them like, hey, he's back, he's healthy, but to MLB to put them on notice, like, we are not kidding around. Uh, we have something and we're going to push it. I don't think that statement is the same to the league and to the fandom if Shane Mack doesn't get the ball on opening day.
Right.
It's more, again, and this is not statistical and this is not analytical. It's more of an emotional speak. It's more like giving a rah-rah moment to your fandom. It's giving a rah-rah moment to the clubhouse. Like, we got our guy. We got our ace. We got our Cy Young candidate taking ball number one. And it's also maybe not a rah-rah moment for the rest of the MLB or of MLB, but, let's say the AL East. It's kind of like, don't take us for granted. You don't have a Shane McClanahan taking the ball number one. And if you look at the opening day starters within the division, I mean, I don't think you can say that Shane Mack is too far away from being the number one in the AL East, at least with talent-wise. You know, injuries and all that, but talent-wise, he's not very far away from the top, and he could make the argument, that he's at the top. I know people are going to say Garrett Cole, and obviously, but what Shane Mack has done whilst being on the mound and being healthy, it's incredible. And hopefully we get more of that. It's great to see him on the field again. And I think one of the cool things was he had the bases loaded to start the second inning, 2 singles and a hit batter, and he escaped. Obviously with a little bit of an assist there from the Mets' bad base running, but still, you get out of it. And that's going to happen multiple times in a 162 game season. And that's exactly why he's that guy. There are pitchers that will succumb to that, but the elite, when you have an issue like that, bases loaded, no out, the elite should be able to get out of that sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that was, maybe part of the issue, well, for so many young pitchers, but when he was younger as well, he would get into the slightest jam and he would kind of throw a fit and things would unravel. And, you hope that he's, well, certainly by the numbers that he's put forth over the last couple of years, that he's learned and grown and developed from that. But yeah, I'm all on the Shane McClanahan train this year. I'm hoping for 150 innings. I'm hoping for a sub 3.3 ERA. I'm hoping for an all-star berth. I'm hoping for all that. But to your point about making him the opening day starter, not only does it put the rest of the league on notice and energize your own fan base. Let's be honest. It's a lot more exciting to say that Shane Mack's going to take the first pitch of the season versus Zach Littell. Yes. It just is what it is. Right. And I also think that transports to the fellow players on the Rays of like, oh, we got our guy back. We can rally behind this. And I think there's something inherently and mentally involved with that just brings a boost of like, we can start the season off on a good note. We don't have to start 1-6 like we did in 2024.
Exactly. Yeah. So, when you have your guy and if he's able to, like they said, they want him to work up to 5 full innings and 80 pitches. Guess what? Maybe this is a little bit ugly to say, but I feel pretty good about Shane McClanahan and the Rockies lineup. Even if it's for 80 pitches and 5 innings, because that could be a clean 5 innings or maybe hopefully 1 less than 2 runs. And you got yourself a really good opportunity there to start the season on the right foot.
Mm-hmm. In fact, Jose Siri now with the Mets, he faced Shane McClanahan in that spring training game. And he said, quote, he looked like he was never hurt. So that's a good sign. If you have the opposition saying things like that, hopefully it matriculates into the regular season there. Put it in the comments what you think about Shane McClanahan. What are your expectations for him in 2025? And Let's hope. I'm not too confident about it, but let's hope that he's in a Rays uniform for a very, very long time. I'd be very excited to see Shane McClanahan at 32, 33, 34 years old still being in a Rays uniform.
Oh.
But we'll have to save that conversation for another date, I think.
That's right.
So, all right. On that note, thank you all for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with host Dominic Martino and Matthew On A. MLB fantasy draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.